how they work. Kristen Cousins is determined to change that. As a community care dentist in Colorado, she'd always been interested in sugar. But it wasn't until she unearthed a stash of documents from a sugar company that had gone out of business that she got a peek into a very secretive world.
The first folder that I pulled out opened up to a memo, the blue letterhead of the Sugar Association, and it had the word confidential underneath the letterhead. And I just looked at that and oh my God, what have I found?
What she'd found was a directive from the 70s, a memo to industry executives about a newly published scientific white paper, a paper that concluded sugar was not only safe, but important.
It was clear after reading further that the Sugar Association had funded this white paper called Sugar in the Diet of Man. They were trying to make it appear that it was an independent study.
Among the more than 1,500 pages she uncovered, there were some Canadian ones too. An account of a sugar industry meeting in the 70s in Montreal that included frank talk about heart disease.
The greatest threat to sugar consumption is in the field of nutrition, it says, more particularly in view of comments that have been recently made on the influence of sugar in atherosclerosis. So they were worried.
They were worried as far back as 1971.
What does that say to you?
They've known for a long time. So I took this paper and crossed out where it said tobacco and put in sugar and looked to see if I could find similar tactics that the sugar industry was using.
Today, Cousins is pursuing her research at the University of California in San Francisco. And she's doing it under the tutelage of someone to whom it all sounds familiar.
The amazing thing I learned from her was the strategies that I thought the tobacco companies made up back in the 50s. Actually, some of those the sugar people had done even before that. Well, now we have 83 million pages of industry documents that's on the internet. We don't bother.
Stan Glantz is famous in litigation circles as a man who first publicized secret tobacco industry documents that proved cigarette companies knew their product was dangerous. In the new sugar documents, he sees lots of parallels.
Well, one parallel is just trying to undermine science. Another one is working to try to attack and intimidate scientists and others who are coming up with results that these big corporate interests don't like. Another one is trying to subvert sensible regulation.
The sugar industry has decades of practice in that. In 2003, the World Health Organization in Geneva was looking at a resolution recommending people reduce their sugar intake to just 10% of what they eat. It had broad appeal among health experts, but then the industry weighed in.
The sugar industry went to their friends in the U.S. Congress, and they got these very influential congressmen to write letters and say that this is simply unacceptable, and in fact that the U.S. would pull its funding for the World Health Organization if this report continued.
5 months later, the recommendation quietly disappeared. Having seen the movie before, Stan Glantz says we can't afford to let it happen again.
We wouldn't have a tobacco epidemic if there wasn't a tobacco industry. We wouldn't have an obesity epidemic if there wasn't an industry that was making a lot of money selling sugar and fat and salt and things like that. And to me, the bottom line is that one of the key disease vectors for non-communicable diseases is big corporations. And I think we're going to have to get these big corporations under control.
It has become a bit of a moral issue. When you see how far we've come.
Bruce Bradley, who used to help run a number of those corporations, agrees.
This isn't a blip. This isn't a minor, we just need a minor course correction. We're on a completely wrong trajectory with our health.
What's the answer then?
I think the honest answer is that we need government to step in and to become an advocate for consumers.
But sugary drinks are a big reason for
But look what's happened when governments have tried. Earlier this year, New York City passed a law banning supersized sugary drinks.
If your kids drink 1 bottle of soda a day, they're eating the equivalent of 50 pounds of sugar a year. The equivalent of 50 pounds of sugar from just 1 soda a day.
Industry's response? To ridicule Mayor Michael Bloomberg as an overbearing nanny. The law was later overturned by the courts.
Everywhere you turn, somebody is telling us what we can't eat.
But advocates keep on trying. 2 weeks ago in Washington, congressmen calling on the government to help consumers by demanding better labels, and at the very least recommending a daily limit for how much sugar is safe. In Canada and the US, those limits exist for other ingredients like fat and sodium. Manufacturers must say what percentage of the recommended daily limit their product contains. But next to sugar, nothing. Would your association, representing the big food manufacturers in this country, would they accept an upper limit of how much sugar Canadians should be eating?
That's kind of hypothetical because
Well, people are putting on the table saying this is one way to, if you want to curb the amount of sugar people are eating, this is one way to start doing that.
I think the industry actually has responded to the need for a diverse supply of foods out in the retail marketplace.
Across our portfolio of more than 650 beverages, we now offer over 180 low and no calorie choices. And most of our
Today, even Coca-Cola, the world's largest sugar user, knows it can't ignore the health debate anymore.
We'd like people to come together on something that concerns all of us: obesity. Coca-Cola and
But the bottom line hasn't changed. If you're getting sick from what you eat, it's your fault.
For people to blame the consumer, to blame the victim in all of this, just as the tobacco companies blame the 12-year-olds they go out and addict, it's just not fair because people aren't given the information that they need if they're trying to make a good choice.
As with tobacco, at some point it will all come down to lives and to dollars. The reckoning, warns Dr. Lustig, is coming.
Bottom line, there will be no money left by the year 2026 for anything else because diabetes will have chewed through all of the healthcare dollars. There will be no health care in 13 years here in America if we do nothing, and I'm sure Canada is right behind.
For 3 weeks, the Bredens have been eating the food we've supplied.
How much steak do you want, Anna?
They're still eating the kinds of food they like, as much as they like. The only difference, none of it's processed and none has added sugar. So, has it made a difference? The moment of truth. In 3 weeks, Jonathan lost 1.5 inches around his waist, 8.5 pounds.
Yeah.
Anna's weight is down too, and her waist, where all that dangerous fat can accumulate, is down by 5 inches. And what effect did all that have on their blood work?
Okay, so Jonathan, I'm glad to say that there's some real signs of things improving. If we have a look at your cholesterol level, it's actually gone down by 10%, which is fabulous. Your triglycerides have gone down by 20%. Okay, so Anna...
Her results are equally good. And while our 3-week experiment is far from scientific proof of anything, Dr. Flanders is pleased.
Could improve your health in the long run. So this is some evidence that the changes that you've made to your eating are helping to make your body happier, healthier. This is fantastic news. This is really great.
Well, when we first started the project, I thought the change would be like really little, that I wouldn't see anything. But to see how dramatically it's changed means to me that like it's really good.
It was a big change. At first it was hard, but good results. I'm happy.